within seconds of opening your eyes this morning, your brain experienced this massive involuntary chemical surge.
Oh, yeah. A huge jolt to the system.
Right. It's a biological phenomenon called the cortisol awakening response. Basically, your body dumps this heavy dose of stress hormone into your system just to reboot your consciousness, to get you out of bed.
It's quite literally a biological alarm clock.
Exactly. Now, I want you to visualize how you handled that chemical spike today. Did you wake up feeling a low hum of anxiety, just immediately overwhelmed by the sheer volume of things you have to do?
Most people definitely do.
Yeah, and did you reach over, grab your phone, and start injecting emails and social media into your brain before your feet even found the floor? Because if you did, you are essentially pouring gasoline on biological fire. You're starting your day in a state of chaotic reaction.
And I mean, that reactive state is the default operating system for a massive portion of the population. We allow external demands to hijack our neurochemistry before we've even established a baseline.
Which is just wild to think about.
It really is. It means we spend the rest of the day playing defensive catch-up.
And that dynamic is the exact reason we're dedicating today's deep dive to an incredible collection of notes and research we've gathered on mastering the morning.
It's such a vital topic.
It really is. Our mission today is to extract the most potent, scientifically sound habits from these sources that actually intercept that morning chaos.
Right, finding the signal in the noise.
Exactly. We are looking for the ultimate shortcut to taking control of your day, not by, overhauling your entire life, but by making incredibly specific micro decisions in those first waking moments.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the core premise running through all our sources is that the trajectory of your entire day is decided in the first few minutes of wakefulness.
Yeah, and it's a critical window of neuroplasticity. Setting the philosophical foundation right at the top is really vital here.
Setting the foundation right.
Yeah, because the research makes it clear we are not aiming for some dramatic personality transplant. You don't need to become a completely different person overnight. Nobody wants to hear they have to change everything about themselves.
Exactly. The goal is recognizing that when you transition from sleep to wakefulness, your brain is shifting from slower theta waves into faster alpha and beta waves.
Which means it's super malleable, right?
Exactly. It's highly suggestible in that window. Small, deliberate choices made during that fragile transition dictate your cognitive posture for the next 16 hours.
Man, knowing how suggestible the brain is during that transition really reframes how dangerous the smartphone is.
No, it's a hazard.
The notes we're looking at draw a massive line in the sand regarding our digital habits. They introduce a strict 15 to 30-minute phone ban the second you wake up.
Which sounds impossible to numb people.
Right. But thinking about the mechanics of this, grabbing your phone immediately is essentially treating your brain like a slot machine that just booted up.
That's a perfect way to put it.
You're hitting it with a variable ratio reward schedule, notifications, news alerts, stressful emails, before the prefrontal cortex is even fully online to process it all.
And that slot machine analogy is neurologically accurate. Your brain is craving a dopamine baseline, and you are immediately giving it highly engineered artificial spikes.
Just shocking the system.
Literally. The cognitive load hits its absolute maximum from second one. The result is a fractured attention span that persists well into the afternoon.
So it's not just a morning problem.
No, not at all. By hitting snooze repeatedly or by drowning your brain in digital noise, you are signaling a rejection of intentionality. You're actively handing the steering wheel of your attention over to whatever algorithm or inbox is screaming the loudest.
Yeah, the proposed solution in our notes is replacing that digital flutter with the pocket of morning silence.
Yeah.
And here is where I struggle with the practicality of this advice.
I think we all do a bit.
Right. Telling someone to just sit, breathe, and think for 15 to 30 minutes sounds lovely if you live on a mountaintop. But for the listener who has, toddlers throwing cereal, a demanding commute, a relentless job, a 30-minute meditation buffer sounds less like a solution and more like a luxury they simply cannot afford.
It's a completely natural reaction to view silence as an unattainable luxury. But what's fascinating here is how the research actually frames this protocol.
Oh, how so?
Well, this is not about assuming a lotus position and emptying your mind for an hour. It's a highly directed, active silence.
Active silence, okay.
Yeah, a 15 to 30-minute buffer where you are intentionally answering specific cognitive prompts. The notes suggest utilizing this window to ask yourself, why am I waking up today? And what do I want to achieve?
Oh, I like that.
Right. You are replacing external input with internal direction.
So you are basically programming the navigation system before you put the car in drive.
Precisely. Even setting a remarkably simple intention like, I want to have a peaceful day, or, I want to handle frustration with patience, gives your morning immediate forward-looking momentum.
It gives you an anchor.
Exactly.
Hmm.
The psychological shift is profound.
Mhm.
By setting an intention, you bypass the amygdala's morning panic, that
Mhm.
feeling of being just lost or overwhelmed, and you engage the executive function. You shift from being a victim of your schedule to feeling actively in control.
That makes total sense. And one observation from our notes perfectly distills that idea. It says, in a busy world, silence is a gift.
That's a beautiful way to phrase it.
It really highlights that delaying the noise isn't about doing nothing. It's about building a defensive armor of calm before you march out into the chaos.
Right, it's active defense.
Exactly. So if we manage to protect the mind's baseline, if we keep the phone away and set a clear intention, the mental software is ready. But cognitive clarity is entirely dependent on physical physiology. The body has to catch up to the mind.
The software requires hardware to run smoothly.
Right.
Once the mind is shielded from digital noise, the physical body requires immediate intervention to reverse the biological deficits incurred during sleep.
And the physiological data on this is just wild. Our sources lay out 3 foundational physical habits to prime the engine. It's hydration, movement, and fuel.
The big 3.
Yeah, and the hydration aspect completely changed how I view a night of sleep. 8 hours of rest is essentially an 8-hour dehydration event.
It really is a mini drought for your body.
Yeah, because you're breathing out moisture all night long. You wake up in a state of mild hypovolemia, meaning your actual blood volume has decreased.
And the physical symptoms of that hypovolemia are what most people mistake for just, being tired.
Wait, really?
Yes. When your blood viscosity increases due to lack of water, your heart has to work significantly harder to pump that thicker blood up to your brain.
Oh, wow. So it's literally thicker blood.
Exactly. That sluggish brain fog feeling isn't necessarily a lack of caffeine. It is a lack of oxygenated blood flow caused by sheer dehydration.
Which makes the act of drinking a large glass of water immediately upon waking an absolute non-negotiable.
Oh, absolutely.
Like before you touch your coffee, before you eat, you are literally repressurizing your circulatory system.
That's a great visual.
Yeah, you're giving your blood the volume it needs to deliver oxygen to your brain tissue. It's a biological fast track to finding energy.
And that rapid repressurization naturally facilitates the next biological requirement, which is movement.
Okay, getting the body going.
Right. When you are dehydrated, your fascia, which is the connective tissue wrapping your muscles, gets sticky and stiff.
Ugh, I definitely feel that in the mornings.
We all do. Water lubricates the system, and movement pumps that hydration deep into the tissue. The research here is incredibly pragmatic. It explicitly states you do not need an exhaustive, high-intensity workout.
Which is such a relief to hear, honestly, because telling someone who is already exhausted to go run 5 miles at 5 a.m. is a recipe for instant burning.
Well, it's completely unsustainable.
Right. The notes emphasize just 5 to 10 minutes of movement, stretching your arms, pacing the room, doing a handful of simple body weight exercises, just enough to break the physical stagnation.
And the mechanism at play during those 5 minutes is crucial. Light movement acts as a mechanical pump for your lymphatic system and forces synovial fluid into your joints.
It's literally oiling the gears.
Exactly. But more importantly, it triggers a mild release of endorphins and brain-derived neurotrophic factor, or BDNF.
Oh, BDNF. We've seen that mentioned before.
Yes. You are physically shaking off sleep inertia and signaling your nervous system to engage. The notes highlight that this brief physical activation measurably improves mood.
And that upward trajectory in mood dictates the quality of your interactions and decisions for the rest of the day.
With 100%.
So the final piece of this physical triad is actual caloric fuel. Breakfast is endlessly debated in diet circles, but the consensus in our source material is highly focused on cognitive load.
Right. It's about the brain, not just the stomach.
Yeah, your brain consumes roughly 20% of your body's resting energy. Over the course of the night, your liver glycogen gets severely depleted.
The tank is empty.
Exactly. So a balanced, healthy breakfast isn't just about stopping a rumbling stomach. It is about replenishing that glycogen. So your prefrontal cortex has the raw energy required for concentration and sustained problem solving.
And without that glucose availability, your brain defaults to energy conservation mode.
Which feels terrible.
It does. It makes you highly susceptible to distraction and irritability. Proper fuel stabilizes your blood sugar, which in turn stabilizes your focus.
Okay, so we have reverse engineered the morning. You are hydrated, your connective tissue is lubricated through movement, and your brain is fueled up with a solid breakfast.
The internal environment is optimized.
Yes. But the massive challenge now is applying this centered state to the external world. How do we build the architecture of the day and tackle the actual demands of our schedule without instantly triggering the stress response we just avoided?
Right, because the emails are still there. This is where we transition from physical priming to strategic execution. Our notes offer two specific cognitive tools for this phase: defining your priorities through focused planning and utilizing positive self-talk.
Okay, I really need to interrogate the positive self-talk recommendation here.
I had a feeling you might.
Look, standing in front of a mirror and saying, I'm improving every day, or today is going to be wonderful, feels dangerously close to toxic positivity to me.
It sounds a bit cliche.
It does. It feels like we are just lying to ourselves about the very real, very difficult challenges waiting for us at work or at home. Does uttering a few positive affirmations actually change anything mechanically in the brain, or is it just fluffy self-help advice?
Well, if we look at it purely as chanting magical phrases,
Yeah.
it absolutely sounds like fluffy nonsense.
Right.
But if we connect this to the bigger picture of neuroscience, we're actually talking about manipulating the reticular activating system, or the RAS.
The RAS. Okay, break that down for us.
Your brain is essentially a massive filtering machine. It takes in millions of bits of sensory data every second, and the RAS decides what gets forwarded to your conscious awareness.
Oh, so it's like a search engine algorithm for your perception.
That is a brilliant way to understand it. The text points out our natural negative default setting.
Yeah.
You wake up and immediately think, I'm exhausted, or I have way too much to do today.
Guilty as charged.
When you program your RAS with those complaints, it aggressively filters your environment to find evidence proving you right. You will notice every annoyance, every slight, and every obstacle. You are actively pre-programming yourself for a miserable experience.
Oh, wow. So by forcing a different input, by saying, I can handle my challenges today, you aren't pretending the challenges don't exist. You're simply instructing the search engine to look for solutions instead of magnifying the threats.
Cognitive reframing at its finest.
Yeah.
You are building defensive mental armor. As the research powerfully states, your words shape your mindset, and your mindset shapes your life.
That's profound.
It really is. It is an algorithmic override, shifting your perception from threat detection to opportunity detection.
And that algorithmic override pairs perfectly with the second tool for the day's architecture, the priority lists.
Yes, the focused planning.
The instruction here isn't just to plan your day willy-nilly, it's to ask yourself, what must I finish? And brutally limit that answer to your top 3 priorities.
Because protecting the brain's energy reserves is the ultimate goal here.
Right.
We suffer from massive decision fatigue as the day progresses. The prefrontal cortex acts like a battery. If you look at a to-do list of 50 items, the sheer volume of impending choices triggers the amygdala.
You just freeze up.
Exactly. You feel an immediate spike of overwhelm, which paralyzes action.
So the top 3 rule acts as a governor on that overwhelm. You constrain the scope of the day to something the brain can actually process without short-circuiting. You know exactly what constitutes a win for that day.
Because focus is simply the elimination of distractions. By identifying the top 3 non-negotiables, everything else becomes secondary. You move through your morning with organized intent rather than scattered panic.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. We're looking at a master list of habits. Waking with intention, instituting a digital ban, practicing active silence, hydrating for blood volume, moving to lubricate fascia, fueling with breakfast, programming the RAS with positive self-talk, and strategizing the top 3 priorities.
That is a lot to take in all at once.
It is. Attempting to execute this highly optimized multi-step morning routine perfectly every single day seems like it would generate the exact cortisol-drenched rush we are trying to escape. Like the routine itself becomes a source of anxiety.
And that is the ultimate trap of self-improvement literature. We fall victim to all-or-nothing thinking.
Oh, completely.
We see the cinematic, perfectly curated morning routines on social media where someone runs 10 miles, meditates in an ice bath, and reads a novel before dawn. And we weaponize that unrealistic standard against ourselves.
which is so toxic. But the notes we're analyzing are refreshingly self-aware about this trap.
They really are.
They explicitly warn against trying to copy that cinematic perfection. Instead of a massive checklist, the research champions consistency over intensity. It actually provides a bare-bones emergency routine that completely strips away the intimidation factor.
I love the emergency routine.
It's just 4 steps. Wake up, drink water, stretch, plan your day.
Because by reducing the friction, you ensure compliance. A 4-step routine neutralizes the cognitive barrier to entry.
It's the ultimate antidote to overwhelm. And the core rule the text provides for making any of this prominent is to start incredibly small. You do not try to rewire your basal ganglia, the habit center of your brain, all in one morning.
The biology of habituation requires patience. Neural pathways are formed through repetition, not intensity.
Repetition over intensity.
Yes, the pragmatic advice is to pick just one single habit to implement tomorrow. If the 30-minute phone ban feels too deeply ingrained to break right now, you don't fight it yet. You just focus on drinking a large glass of water first.
Master the water, let that neural pathway solidify, and then, add the 5 minutes of stretching.
Layering habits over time is the only sustainable method. The source drops a vital piece of wisdom here. Real change happens step by step.
Step by step.
When you focus on incremental adjustments, transforming a chaotic morning into an intentional launchpad becomes highly attainable regardless of how messy your current baseline is.
So what does this all mean? We started this deep dive by visualizing a stressful, reactive morning. I want you to replace that mental image right now.
Wipe the slate clean.
Exactly. Visualize waking up tomorrow, but instead of the cortisol spike, the digital flood, and the brain fog, you experience a methodical rollout.
A controlled start.
You feel physically hydrated, you feel cognitively clear, you know your top 3 priorities, there is no frantic rush. You're experiencing a peaceful start built entirely on tiny, manageable, scientifically backed choices. That alternate reality for your morning is completely accessible.
It is a phenomenal blueprint for taking ownership of your waking hours. But analyzing all this data about the extreme importance of our first few conscious minutes raises a fascinating secondary question.
Oh, where are we going with this?
Well, if starting our day with a calm mental baseline and proper physiological priming is the absolute key to how the entire day unfolds, is the true first step of a peaceful morning actually decided the night before?
Oh, wow.
Right? If we want to optimize the moment we open our eyes, perhaps the most critical variable is how we are choosing to close them.
The evening routine as the biological prequel to the morning routine.
Exactly.
That is a massive rabbit hole involving sleep architecture and wind-down protocols that we will definitely have to tackle in the future. We'll leave you to ponder your own evening choices tonight. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Take the advice of the research to heart. Pick just one single micro-habit we unpacked today. Maybe it's the glass of water to fix that overnight hypovolemia. Or maybe it's the 15 minutes of active silence. Try it tomorrow morning and watch how it rewires the trajectory of your entire day.